Enjoy the stove.
One more time.
All right, it's Jeff from MACkite.
And I'm Tucker. We'll see you next time.
Hey guys, Jeff here at MACkite.
And I'm Tucker.
And we've got something new in the house right here. Those of you that might be on YouTube and seen maybe some of this already, SABfoil came out with something that definitely is a little bit something new.
I don't know if it's totally new, but it's out there. B-2 bomber inspired, kind of as alien craft, we'll say. So it's exciting to see somebody branch out beyond our typical glider looking foils. So of course we had to get a couple and demo them. We had the 840 and here the 1040 and put them through their paces. Yeah, the SABfoil Sea Devil.
Sea Devil.
So for this is a new plane for them. It connects to any of their Kraken series masts with the M8 bolt connection. So if you already have a Kraken mast from SABfoil with the M8 connection, you'll be good to go, but there's not going to be a whole lot of use for your fuselage because the wing itself is kind of the fuselage.
It's all, I mean, you're right. New in this, that new for SABfoil, there has been a monofoil out before, but this one, we'll break it down a little bit, does have a stabilizer. So we've got a stabilizer that, that's how I first engaged with this. Obviously, when I pull up the beach, there's a couple guys there going, what do you got there?
Yeah.
It looks really wild.
Almost expect there to be little rocket boosters on it or something, right?
Yeah, it's definitely got a unique shape. Looked very big. I think the square centimeters of the one I was on was around over 2,000, but definitely didn't feel like that. I'll get into that in a moment. But yes, SABfoil came out with something here that they have said is kind of two foils in one, because you have the stabilizer. Keyword stabilizer, you're going to hear me repeating that based on my first experience with this one.
Yeah.
And then you can take the stabilizer off and you have a different experience. So I would agree, you have two completely different foiling experiences in one foil, just by taking off the rear stab. And then they do have a little stub, or whatever you want to call it, that you put in there.
Little cap to put in the back.
Cap when you're just riding the Sea Devil without the stab on it. So my first experience, I got on it and rode 45 minutes. Never fell in the water. Felt very stable, smooth. I say all that because I test a lot of foils, a lot of different conditions, and if I can jump on a foil, ride around, do my tacks, do jibes, flag the wing out, just ride around and just like don't give much thought to the foil. That's how I was on this. Even though it looks completely different, I was expecting, it took me a little bit moment to get up on it. That was just feet position. I wouldn't say that's a foil issue. That was just me adjusting to where I put it on the board and blah, blah, blah. But very little issues. I was like, wow, stable, good, pretty smooth glide. It had its roll. I just felt like solid.
Yeah, it's a decent,
yeah,
mid-high aspect glider type foil. Obviously, you mentioned the size is deceiving. I think the important thing to remember is that a lot of the lifting is coming from kind of this V section, and then a lot of this back here is more of just tapering and a little bit of stabilization from the extra cord you're getting in that midsection. So I've cheated a little bit. I've ridden all the Triton monofoils in the past.
I haven't.
So I had a pretty good idea of what we were getting into here, being that this shape is pretty familiar. We've ridden monofoils before. I've ridden a lot of different foils without the stab that even weren't meant to be ridden that way, just to play around. And usually what you get is it's slipperier, but it's a lot less stable and very squirrely in the turn. All of your directional stability comes from momentum and a little bit from the mast, but the up and down stabilization becomes very twitchy.
Well, like I said, keyword stabilizer. There's a reason why foils have stabilizers.
Yep.
So when I rode this the first time and I, 45 minutes, didn't fall in, was very stable. If I didn't know I was on this foil, I would have thought I was on somewhat of a traditional shape foil.
And it is for the most part. I mean, it's more of a V shape, like kind of delta shape, and You know, it
Definitely.
looks weird, but it's not so much different from a normal foil that it's going to be this whole new life-changing
No, well,
experience.
I
You know, with the
expected that.
stab, it's kind of a normal foil.
Yeah, I expected it to be, even with the stab on there, to be a different experience. Not to say that's good, bad, or anything. It was just my mindset was like, this is different. I haven't been on any monofoil before, and so it looked different. But if you would have like blindfolded me, had me ride this, I would have thought, oh, nice foil. I mean, I wouldn't have thought this is the shape or this is where we're heading with
Sure.
a 2-in-1 foil. Taking the stab off, so I came back in, took the stab off, went back out.
This is where the fun starts.
Again, sometimes your mind can play games on you. I was thinking, all right, this is going to be funky. I popped right up, though. I didn't have many issues getting up on foil. I rode. I quickly found out, yeah, you really have to be aware of where your feet are and what input you're giving it, because it's sensitivity from front to back, up and down. You know, it was slippery.
Yep.
You know, and so it took me a moment to get my feet right. I will say, my first jive, I did go in the water. I made the turn, but I put too much front pressure and I slammed down real quick.
Yeah.
But I was able to pop back up, and then I was able to ride for the next 30 minutes, you know. But I had to have a lot more thought going into what I was doing.
Yep.
Instantly, though, the glide was noticeable difference. I felt without the stabilizer, I just felt a little bit more, I don't know.
Yeah,
a
you're
little
moving
less
some
drag. Yeah,
Yeah.
less drag. I didn't have a big wave day on this day. It was kind of really small, you know, short, little stuff. But I was able to flag out and kind of just, you know, obviously, it does turn easier and it releases and
It's more pivoty.
Yeah, pivot.
And the up-down pitch control is very twitchy, which can be good and bad. You know, if you're looking to wrap a really tight pivoty turn on a wave, I mean, wherever you point it, it's going to go. But that being said, you better have your balance on point and point it in the right direction, because there's nothing to push against in a turn. So I think that's the thing that resonates with me across a lot of monofoils. And this one has less of a stabilizing lip to the shape as compared to like the Triton, which has a pronounced kind of lip in the release in the tail section. And that helps kind of stabilize it a little bit. It's kind of a self-stabilizing wing foil or foil shape. This one doesn't have that quite as much. You gain a lot of the stability from that V shape and the length of that cord from, you know, leading edge to where the tip releases. So that's kind of where you're gaining that stability rather than having something actually driving the nose up. So what I found as compared to those, in my experience with that, is that it wants to follow the energy that's in the water. So if you're on the wave and you're gliding, it's pretty automatic that it wants to follow, you know, with the wave, as long as it's a clean wave. So that's pretty fun. It's very loose and flowy in that. So if you want to have something very loose and you don't like that feeling of pushing against a stabilizer in a turn, more of a skateboardy kind of a feel, this will do it for you. The downside is, you know, if you have choppy conditions, or let's say you're riding back out through the swell, the foil wants to rise and drop along with the energy that you're going through. So it's very much of a bucking bronco, whereas normally, you know, your momentum in the stabilizer kind of keeps things level, and it'll rise and fall a little bit with the energy of the waves and stuff. But this one actually wants to drop the nose on you, because this front section sort of catches that energy and pitches it over. So it's something to be aware of. You know, it's not going to necessarily send you flying or you know, ruin your ride, but it's a little unnerving having that trapdoor drop out on you when you're not ready for it. And once you adapt to it and get ready for it, you kind of push with it and you anticipate it. So it's a different feel. But for me, yeah, the thing you realize when you pull the stab off, obviously you're pulling drag off of a foil. You're going to feel it's faster. You're going to feel less drag. That can be more glide if you're aiming the foil correctly, but if you're not aiming the foil correctly, or you're kind of bobbering up and down, you're losing efficiency in the glide. So, you know, for me, it's a bit of give and take on the glide, but there's more top speed. I would say as a general positive thought about the foil, it has a good range for its size. There's a decent amount of low speed lift. It's fairly speedy on the top end. It's not a fast foil, I wouldn't say, even without the stabilizer, but it's faster than you would imagine it is. Looking at it and you're like, yeah, it's kind of mid-high aspect weirdness, very low aspect here and more high aspect on the tips, you know, and it's thick, you know, it's probably not going to be that fast. It's faster than you'd expect it to be, but definitely not something that's going to, you know, help you push the limits of speed if you're already riding something traditional that's a little fast. Yeah, it's going to still be a better choice.
We did a really nice job in explaining the characteristics of it and how that translates in my first experience. Is I felt like I had to do some imagery, like under the water, like imagining based on the wave I was on or what was things were going on. I needed to point it and kind of ride it with that flow. So I mean that exactly is kind of how I experienced it. I kind of had to, I mean, just mentally, I when I got on a small little wave, I kind of had to just like be sensitive to where that energy was and place it there. And when it was in the spot, it felt very, very good. But yeah, you do get that little feedback. I'm optimistic. I think if you spent more time on it and you really kind of got it dialed, I can see, I would agree with you, the range that you could have with this, you know, pulling that stabilizer off, using this, you know, to really have it release a little bit more. Definitely, you know, the speed, once you get it locked in, I think it has fairly good speed for its design and shape. So initially I was like, you know, not sure why you'd ever take the stabilizer off, but as I spent a little more time on it, I think it would just take a little more time to adjust and get used to where you need to, you know, put your feet and weight it. It's a different riding experience than in any other foil that I've personally been on. So it's a shift. You have to kind of shift. And so can it work? I guess that's the thing. You know, I think it can. You know, I already sold my demo. You know, there are people that have seen these and, you know, and are buying them. And I think, you know, something new like this, you know, we wanted to bring it in, try it out. I think, you know, it's niche-y, to be straight up. I think it's a little bit of a niche. I don't think it's groundbreaking that it's, you know, that we're going to see a lot of this in the market, or it can replace or it enhances where we already are with all the great foils we have out there and where foil designs have gone. But, you know, thumbs up to SABfoil for, you know, taking something, and I think adding the stabilizer and some of their design, I think makes it a little bit easier to engage with maybe than previous monofoils.
Yeah, I think it's a good half step. It's got training wheels, you know, as compared to like a Triton foil, which, you know, you don't have the option to add a stabilizer and make it easier to ride when you're first learning, or you don't have the option to add a stabilizer on a lighter wind day where you might want a little bit more stability so you're not falling and, you know, exhausting yourself. You know, the takeaway for me is, you know, it's being presented as this is two foils in one. I'm not sure it's quite true, honestly. I mean, I think most people in the market are going to want to ride it with the stabilizer most of the time.
I agree.
It works quite well that way. There's a very, very, very small amount of people that want something so loose and
have the skill set, the time to focus
the
on
skill
that.
set, but also the
up.
need for it, you know, like, I mean, we can both ride at a pretty high level. I love riding in the waves. There are some benefits to this on some of those days, but would I want to ride it as my wave foil? No, I wouldn't. It just doesn't have the same performance characteristics and reliability. You know, you want to be able to push into your foil and create speed and drive, rather than just, you know, these quick little pivots. You know, it could be interesting on something like a wakeboard boat, you know, where you have a consistent wave energy and you're not bringing a lot of speed into a turn where you're needing those high G, you know, pushing into the foil type turns. It's more skatey and directional. I think there's room for that. You know, I think it's an interesting, you know, idea. I think some people will be excited about it and really enjoy it. But the reality is, after they ride it without the stab for a while, they'll be like, it's fun, it's interesting, it's something to experience, but not really anything that I want to do every day.
I would
it does
agree
allow
with
you to
that.
do 360s without getting the foil out of the water, which is kind of neat, but you know, it makes those really quick, skatey directional turns, kind of interesting. But again, I don't see that being like a specific discipline and performance that a lot of people are asking for. Personally, I think there's a lot of room to grow in the design. So I don't think it's a scrap it idea. I think this is a really cool first introduction to this concept, and playing with some different stabilizers and different lengths of fuselages on this design could really yield some fun results, because it is more stable than just taking your normal foil and pulling the stabilizer
Oh, big
off.
time.
Because we've done that. It's
Big
fun.
time.
It's fast. It's loose. This is easier to ride than that when you're doing that. But I think realistically, people will want something adding some level more stabilization, just to give you a little bit better pumpability, just to give you a little bit better, consistency in turns and going through different wave energies and currents. It's just such a small amount of people that can really benefit from that level of looseness.
I would agree.
And wildness in a foil.
And I think that comes down to, I use the word niche, but I think there are a few people that could maybe use it without the stabilizer in a wave how it's intended and feel fairly comfortable.
If you have
It
a
would take
clean
me-
wave
it would
and you
take
want
me
to make
some
slow
practice.
speed directional
Yeah.
turns on a wave and really,
No problem.
run the side to side slalom course, this will do it for sure. And going into a tight, mocked over turn in a wave face, there's benefits of a stabilizer-less system, because you can point it where you want it to go. But man, you better be ready to continue to point it where it wants to go, because if you don't, you're going down.
No, it doesn't need a lot of input. So that's that takeaway. And I think when you start riding waves, speaking for myself, things with a lot of power, you do want a foil that you can push, but you also want, when you push it, to feel like that it's working with you, and kind of there's some forgiveness to it a little bit. This, you definitely, like I said, foot position, waiting.
There's no kickback, one hand, chill.
No. It's like
You better be on it.
No, and I did find a sweet spot, like you said. I think you said it well. When you get it where it needs to be and you're weighting it right, it's like nice.
Yeah.
But then if you get a little lazy, get a little lackadaisical with your feet position, you're getting that feedback underneath there. So, all in
It's
all,
more like riding a unicycle than it is
a little
bicycle.
bit. So, I wouldn't throw it out. I would say with the stabilizer on there, I had a great experience on it. I think it's definitely, I like what you said, maybe tweaking some things, adding some different kind of stabilizers to it.
If we make this about half as long and this about half as big, I think that could be something interesting. So we'll leave it up to SABfoil to level up their program and give you more options.
See where it heads out. So anyways, we are carrying them, and I think we covered the bases pretty well. Our experience, our honest experience. Obviously, when anything new like this, we want the customer, we want to represent it as best we can, so that when you do get something like this that's brand new, there's not major surprises, and you're like, we don't want to oversell something or make you feel like this is going to be like any other foil you've ridden. This is going to be, I think.
Yeah, especially when there's so much hype around it.
Yeah, there is. There is. It's new. It's unique.
It's exciting. There's cool aspects about it, but I think maybe there's maybe too much excitement about doing two different foils, when really it's kind of like calling your normal foil with two different stabs, different foils.
I would say one foil that's tamed and pretty like you'd be used to, and then when you take the stab off, same foil, and you got to tame it a little more and get over it. But anyways, I think there you have it, the Sea Devil from SABfoil. If you have questions about it, after watching our video, or you want to reach out to us, we'd be more than happy to kind of help you out, further dive into it. Would this be a foil for you?
Yeah,
So
she's got an angel on one side and a
right.
devil on the other. What flavor do you want, man? There's no in between.
Which one's going to be speaking the most to you and make you enjoy your ride the most? So anyways, enjoy the Stokes. Been Jeff here from MACkite and Tucker.
We'll see you next time.